Hovermale, host for Pacifica Currents. In this episode, we'll be discussing living history. Our guest tonight is Steve Johnson, Pacifica school teacher, National Park volunteer, and an actor. So welcome, Steve.
Edie, thanks very much for inviting me to Pacifica Community TV.
What is living history?
Well, living history is just making history come alive in some way, and the way I got started with living history, I was teaching history to my 4th and 5th graders here in Pacifica. I really wanted to make history much more interesting than just reading out of a book. So after reading this wonderful book about Christopher Columbus, I decided, since now I knew more about his personality and what motivated him, I decided that I would become Christopher Columbus. So I dressed up and I went into the classroom as Columbus, and I presented why I was going to find the New World and what it was like after I came back. And I brought props to the classroom, and I would tell them, you know, boys and girls, I brought this pepper back, and with this pepper I could buy a whole horse because it is so precious. And if I brought back this cinnamon, I could buy a whole house. And if I brought back some of this, actually that was a different one. This is cinnamon. Cinnamon is even more precious because I could buy a whole ship with the cinnamon. So you see, it's very precious, and this is why I went to the New World. Well, kids ate up on this. They just loved this idea of seeing who this person really was and how this person changed history. And after that, I decided to do other characters, some of my favorites from science history. So I did Galileo, who was, as you know, persecuted because of his beliefs, but I wanted to bring in the drama of his life because he had to go before the church court to prove his case, and he did, but the church wasn't having it. And then there was Pasteur, who came up with a germ theory, and he had to prove himself to the doctors who wouldn't believe him because he was just a chemist, not a doctor. So I wanted to bring out the drama, the interaction between this person and the kids, so they could really feel they were talking to that person from history. I did this character called Sourdough Steve when the kids and I went up to camp on the American River.
My name is Sourdough Steve, and I sure remember those alternative kids coming up to the gold country looking for gold themselves. Yes, sir, we panned for gold, and we made biscuits, and oh yeah, we had that old-fashioned barn dance. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, the parents had a lot of fun too, especially when the kids went to sleep at night. We stood around the fire and told stories and had a great old time. Maybe I'll see those kids up there with their own kids sometime, and yeah, I'd love to see them. I'm still panning for gold and looking for that nugget I've been looking for the last 4 to 5 years.
That is fantastic. You are really a character there. Now, is this Sourdough Steve, did you make him up from your own head, or was he a real character?
He was a compilation of miners I'd read about during the gold rush. So I tried to incorporate a lot of those characteristics, you know, the tall tales, the being able to cook out in the wilderness, because we'd make actually sourdough bread, because that's where sourdough bread came from in San Francisco, was from the French miners. And I would sing songs and, you know, all the kinds of things that the miners would do. And again, that's what brought history to life. And I decided to be part of the National Park Service. I was a ranger for a while at Fort Point, and they let me wear a uniform, a Civil War uniform. And then I got to talk about the history of California and the Civil War, which is a whole vast unknown subject in California history. So I worked as a ranger and then as a volunteer at Fort Point, and that led me to become a volunteer at Alcatraz later.
So Steve, my kids go to Ocean Shore, which used to be the alternative program, and you were in the alternative program. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it was a really wonderful experience because I really believe that, you know, education involves the family intimately. And having the parent in the classroom, you know, it was a problem with some teachers, but not for me and not for the other alternative teachers, because we felt we were all partners. We were all learning together, doing this experience together. And I loved having parents in the classroom because I got to know them better, they got to know me better. They actually got to see what I was doing in the classroom. And what I really loved about it was going on these field trips, because I almost got a little bit of trouble because I was going on like 2 field trips a month, but I figured that was one of the best learning experiences, because when you're out there living together in the camp, you are really seeing family dynamics, you're seeing personalities together, you're seeing a big family, you know, with all that means, and it was really wonderful. My favorite was going up to the Gold Country as Sourdough Steve.
As Sourdough Steve. Now, Ocean Shore still, actually, they go up to Sutter's Fort, and it's a very fun thing. And the living history, the kids actually do the living history. Did they do that when you were there? They got involved and they dressed up?
Oh, yes, because that's all part of the experience. And I really applaud the teachers who are still doing that. You know, that it takes a lot of work on the part of the teachers, and they have to give up their whole weekend, but the payoff is seeing the kids really getting into this so well. And I've had kids come back to me who in some way have gotten involved with living history, or at least they remember, you know, these things I was telling about Columbus or Pasteur. They may have forgotten exactly what they did, but they remembered their personality. They remembered that they did something really important, and that stuck in their mind, and that's what I wanted to happen.
Parents being involved really helps the kids.
Of course it does.
Stay out of the principal's office, and it helps them do better in school.
As kids get older and they get in those teenage years and they kind of draw away, I found so many kids involved in the alternative program that doesn't happen as much, because they've been doing things with their parents all along, and they don't want that to stop. Right. So I think that's one of the best parts of the alternative program.
And I think people, even if they're not in the alternative program, they can get that by taking their kids to the different fairs, the Dickens Fair and the Renaissance Fair, and they can get that themselves just by taking their kids. And
that's right.
I know sometimes it's a push. We were talking earlier to get your kids there, but once they're there, it's just the magic happens.
That's right. And my daughter was a fair brat, as they're called. This son or daughter of somebody who's one of the workers or actors at fair. And she loved the whole idea of being there before the people came, because it was like a little village. And it was like walking through a little village and seeing everybody in the morning, you know, the people with the sheep and the people making things in wood and the people getting the food ready. She loved it. She has great memories of that. But, you know, I think it helped us bind together as father and daughter, because we did that together for years and years.
How does the history help people understand where we are today?
If history had been just a little bit different, if the South had put Grant, or pardon me, if the South had put Lee in a little sooner, maybe the war would have ended. We would have had 2 countries. If Grant hadn't been a general, we probably would have lost the Civil War, and we would have had 2 countries. So history can sometimes hinge on just a few people, just a few personalities. And that's what I like to bring out, why I like to bring out individuals, because they can have an impact on a whole history.
I think that also helps people realize that they can have impact as well.
Exactly.
And just by you showing these people and their personalities and how they can.
Exactly. We all write our own histories.